the daily rituals pharaohs performed, but no one ever talked about close your eyes and imagine yourself in ancient Egypt on the banks of the Nile in the silence of the night. Behind high stone walls, inside a room decorated with gold, a pharaoh is waking up to begin the day. But this awakening is nothing like the mornings we know. Pharaohs did not live like ordinary people, because they were not seen merely as kings, but as living gods. And for that reason, every single day of their lives had to be lived in harmony with the gods. The very first ritual of the day was the ritual of silence. The pharaoh would not speak. The priests inside the chamber would not speak either. Because according to belief, if the first word of the day was spoken incorrectly, the balance of the entire universe could be disturbed. The pharaoh's face was then washed with sacred water from the Nile. But this was not ordinary cleansing. Special oils and plants dedicated to the gods were mixed into the water. This ritual symbolized that the pharaoh was still accepted by the gods. After that came the mirror ritual. The pharaoh was placed in front of a mirror framed in gold, and the priests would whisper softly, "You are the reflection of Ra on earth." This ritual reminded the pharaoh of his divine identity every single day. Because if a pharaoh ever felt human, even for a moment, he could lose his power. One of the most fascinating rituals took place before meals. Before the pharaoh ate, the same food was first offered to the gods. Meat, bread, fruit, everything belonged to the gods before it belonged to him. The pharaoh was not the first to eat. He was the one who ate what remained after the gods, a quiet reminder that even he was not above them. As midday approached, the pharaoh was never left alone. But this was not social company. It was protection. Priests, guards, and seers were always nearby, because it was believed that when a pharaoh was alone, evil spirits could enter his mind. Loneliness was considered a weakness. As sunset drew near, another secret ritual began. The shadow ritual. The pharaoh would look at his shadow reflected on the wall, and the priest would ask, "Is your shadow still with you today?" If the shadow appeared distorted, it was considered a bad omen. Sometimes military campaigns were canceled, or important decisions were postponed because of this. When night fell, the most unsettling ritual of all began. Before sleeping, the pharaoh participated in a rehearsal of death. For a short time, he was placed in a position similar to mummification, because in ancient Egypt, every sleep was believed to be a small death. This ritual was meant to teach the pharaoh not to fear death, because if a pharaoh was afraid, the people would be afraid too. As the night deepened, the candles in the room were extinguished one by one. The final candle was blown out according to the rhythm of the pharaoh's breath. This symbolized that he was still a living god. To be a pharaoh in ancient Egypt was not about sitting on a throne. It meant living like a god in every breath, every moment, every day. And perhaps that is why pharaohs loved power, but never tasted freedom. As the night progressed, all sounds inside the palace faded away, but this silence was not for rest. It was for listening. Before the pharaoh fell asleep, priests positioned themselves in the corners of the room. No one spoke, because in ancient Egypt, the sounds of the night were believed to be the whispers of the gods, and the pharaoh's duty was to hear them. One of the rituals before sleep was the breathing ritual. The pharaoh breathed in a precise rhythm. The priests counted each breath. because irregular breathing meant the harmony with the gods was broken. If the pharaoh's breath became faster, it was believed that dangerous dreams would come that night. Another daily ritual, known to very few, was the name ritual. The pharaoh's true name was never known to the public. The name people used was only a title. The true name was whispered into the pharaoh's ear each day. Because in Egyptian belief, anyone who knew a person's true name could touch their soul, and the pharaoh's soul had to be protected. For this reason, the pharaoh never spoke his own true name out loud. One of the strangest daily rituals was the walking ritual. The pharaoh never walked randomly. The direction, number, and speed of his steps were predetermined. Stepping forward with the right foot symbolized harmony with the gods. Starting with the left foot was considered unlucky. If the wrong foot touched the ground first, the ritual had to begin again. This was how time was controlled in ancient Egypt. The pharaoh could only look into a mirror at specific hours, because staring into a mirror too long was believed to separate the soul from the body. Mirrors were kept covered. They were revealed only during ritual and covered again immediately afterward. The pharaoh's face was a sacred symbol that had to be protected. As evening approached, another ritual took place. The ritual of words. The pharaoh reviewed every word he had spoken that day in his mind, because a single wrong word was believed to bring disaster. The priest would ask, "Did you speak any word today that harmed the universe?" If the pharaoh hesitated, a purification ritual followed. Incense was burned. Prayers were whispered. Words were weapons in ancient Egypt. Before sleep, the pharaoh performed the ritual of farewell to the shadow. He looked at his shadow one last time, because it was believed that the soul traveled with the shadow at night. If the shadow was present, the soul was safe. If not, that night required caution. Even while sleeping, the pharaoh was never alone. Not because of guards outside the door, but because of spiritual guardians. Symbols drawn on the walls protected the sleeping pharaoh. They were not decoration, they were locks. Locks against bad thoughts, bad dreams, and dark forces. Just before dawn, moments before the pharaoh awakened, the priests slightly opened the chamber door. Light entered slowly, because the divine body of a pharaoh should never be exposed to sudden light. A new day would begin, once again with rituals. In ancient Egypt, being a pharaoh was not about ruling from a throne. It was not about playing a role. It meant living inside a ceremony that never truly ended. And perhaps that is why pharaohs were powerful, but never free.